just about to start the second part. Thank you so much.
the great composer and I guess recovering saxophonist Manny Albam, who lived here on Glengarry for many years. You knew him for a long time.
Manny had a big mustache and a large nose. he went into a trick shop one time and bought one of those pairs of glasses that had a mustache, and he wore it to a record date, and he took it off and he looked just the same.
What else can you tell us about Manny, maybe as a musician?
Manny was an excellent arranger, and everybody was always glad when they could get one of his arrangements. And he got into teaching. There was some school down in New Jersey that he was...
Glassboro,
yeah. And just an absolutely charming, interesting man with a lot of musical talent. So I was glad to see that you're honoring him.
Well, part of his teaching was he, along with Bob Brookmeyer, began a workshop for professional musicians who were arrangers to help them become better composers. That was sponsored by BMI, the Performing Rights Organization. So Bob and Brookmeyer and Manny started that in 1988. And I guess by coincidence, because I live in Croton too, I've been the director of the BMI workshop for 7 years. And so, yeah, they asked me where I live. They said, where do you want people from Croton? That's how that worked out. So what would you like to play?
Do you want to do another one of yours?
The transcription? Well, I thought we could do Dat Dare at some point, a little later, but maybe just call a tune you'd like to play.
All right. How about Broadway?
Broadway. Key?
Isn't that B flat?
Can be.
I never remember keys. I play for so many singers. They do things in other keys.
All right, cool. Count it off. What do you want? Right on it?
Yeah, right on it. 1, 2.
Perfect. Which one do you like?
Yeah.
Got It Bad, and That Ain't Good. No. But all seriousness aside, I Got It Bad and That Ain't Good by Duke Ellington. Now, did you ever work with the Ellington Band? Did you have that chance?
Well, once. I was playing with Jerry Mulligan on a concert with Duke at the Louison Stadium, the big outdoor stadium. And Duke came up to Jerry and said, "Do you mind if my band goes on first? Because I got to be someplace tonight and I'd like to get out of here." Okay, so he goes down and sets the band up, and no bass player. It turned out that Jimmy Woody had left a call for the hotel to wake him up, and they forgot. Okay, so Duke's looking at the sky, hoping it won't rain, and looking at his watch, and then he comes up and pulls me by the sleeve and says, "Come with me." So I take my bass down, and there's a music stand next to the piano, and there's a book on the floor, so I start to get that out. And Britt Woodman in the trombone section says, "Don't do that, that's all been changed." So he said, "Just hang around in B flat while Duke's talking to the audience." So Sam Woodyard and I start playing a little time, and then pretty soon Duke sits down at the piano and he plays the intro to one of his old hits. He knows that I would know that, and we had no trouble playing that. Did that with about 3 tunes, and then he had a ballad that he wanted to play that he'd just written recently, and he knew I didn't know it, so he played an arpeggio, and then he pointed at one of the bass notes on the piano keyboard, and I mean, it must be my note, so I played it, and he nods, and we started, and every time I needed to know what the next chord was, he would just point to that key. Got me through the concert perfectly. It was very nice.
Yes, I've heard tell that sometimes he did not write bass parts, and that he would do that frequently with bass players going back a long time. He would not play the bass note in the left hand of the piano, but he would point to it, I guess like Chico Marx about to do this kind of thing. You know? Yeah, well, that's
I met him at a festival a few months after that down in Indiana. He was coming out of the elevator as I was going in, and he said, "Oh, Mr. Crow," he said, I never had the opportunity to properly remunerate you for your excellent services." And I said, "Duke, that was the thrill of my life. Please be my guest." Into the dinner dining. So that was I did get a chance to play with him a couple of times when I was at the Hickory House with Marion McFarland. He would come in for dinner, because his publicist had worked out a deal where they could eat free there if he would get Duke mentioned in Walter Winchell's call. So Marion would always play a few of his tunes, and sometimes she could coax him up to sit in with Joe Morello and me, and that was always pleasant.
How long was the engagement at Hickory House?
Well, I was there for 2.5 years. And then Jerry Mulligan called me to be in his sextet, and I really couldn't turn that down because he had Zoot and Brookmeyer playing with him. And so I left Marion and went out for about a year with that sextet. And then I went back and played at the Hickory House. But by that time, Joe Morello had gone with Rubeck, so Dick Scott was the drummer.
Okay.
But that was
great.
About 3.5 years altogether.
So you get to work with lots of good drummers.
Oh, you bet.
Nick's pretty good, right? We got time for a couple of more. One of these things is a Bobby Timmons tune that I know you play frequently. Maybe we can end with that. What else would you like to do then?
Want to do a Latin tune?
Okay. Yeah.
Nick's got his Latin.
I might not know it, but you guys should definitely do one. This is like some sort of magic conga drum that has there's no shell, but it, for some reason sounds like a conga. There's like a whole drum here. I know, it's a conga. Is that a Rockland County joke? I don't know that, but I don't have to play. You guys do it. Just
Beautiful Love is possible. Do that, or do Wave or something?
Wave.
I'll listen. You guys do.
You can figure it out.
I know it, but I just on my flute.
I'll get through it.
speak up? I was suggesting I remember people.
You will halfway through.
How about like coupons?
What key is it?
I haven't played that one in 30 years.
I don't know, I haven't played in 30 years.
Why did you guys just said that?
listened to him a lot, but I never got a chance to play with him.
I found one person of note that Bill is not playing. When I say of note, I'm not trying to make a pun or anything. The Codits did actually use that in his acceptance speech for when he was inducted into the NEA Jazz Masters. He said something about it, being noteworthy or something like that. Made a face like, get it? Which was actually very hip.
You played with Chet, right?
Well, Chet was gone by the time I joined Jerry, but when we were touring in Europe with the sextet, he was around and came in with a jam session together at the theater. It was nice. Actually, he hired me for one job, and I was just putting my bass in the car to drive into the city, and Bob Mover called me up and said, Chet just canceled the gig. So,
Missed it by that much. Well, just to remind everybody, Jazz Anecdotes is available. Is it at your website or?
Well, Amazon is the best place for it.
So the QR code is available by the information desk, right over there, table. And we'd like to thank the gang at the library, Gwen and staff at the library. Kenny Sargent, what are the dates for next few concerts?
We've got one in early, I think it's January 7th. And then there's one in March.
It's going to snow that day.
And then there's a Mother's Day concert too.
Mother's Day concert. I'll have to invite my mom.
And all the other mothers.
And all the other mothers that. There are all these good stories in the book. You must get it. And most of them are true, right?
Well, I'll tell you one story. I think it's in one of the books. Zoot Sims and Al Cohn used to play the half note quite often, and they were both very skilled drinkers. But Zoot had started out in the afternoon at a party, and so he came in a little bit high, and by the end of the night he was really loaded. So everybody else is packing up and they're on their way out the door, and Zoot's still up on the bandstand playing, So Al Cohn turns around and says, Zoot, take off the red shoes.
I got to use an Al Cohn joke. Privately, it was only funny to myself, but famously, there's the story of the wino who asked him for money for a beer.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So I think it's in one of your books, where a guy goes up to Al Cohn on the street and says, man, listen, it's hot out here, it's in the middle of summer. He says, I need $1 to get a beer. So Al reaches in his pocket, and I'm about to give him $1. He says, how do I know you're not going to get a cup of coffee? Fast forward 40, 50 years, I'm in traffic on the Major Deegan Expressway. And there's a guy with a sign that says, please help me raise money to buy a cold beer. And now we're stop and go traffic, and he just comes up to my window and does that. So I couldn't resist. I had $1, and I put the window down. Using the international symbol for window, but it's and I give him $1. I said, wait, how do I know you're not going to get a lemonade? And he chuckled, and I give him. There was no one there to see that I didn't have like one of those dash cams.
Now, Al was very quick. He was growing a mustache one time, and it was just about half grown. And he was coming out of Charlie's Tavern, and I said, Al, you look like a cross between Groucho Marx and Emilio Zapata. And he says, Groucho Marx.
So Al Cohn was this great saxophonist and composer, and his son Joe is a wonderful guitar player.
And Joe's daughter is a wonderful trumpet player.
That's true. Joe's daughter in New Orleans plays the trumpet.
Yeah.
And at one point, I was thinking of putting together a group that would play zoot and owl music with my friend Dan Block, who's another middle-aged, bespectacled Jew with facial hair. And I only say that because I mentioned it to Joe Cohn that we would like to do this tribute to Zoot and Al with Dan Block, and would you be interested in, without missing a beat, he said, seems more like with you two guys, like a tribute to Al and Al. So, but he was very quick, like his old man. Well, gang, we thank you very much indeed. Leonieke Scheuble. And an old man, Nick Scheuble. And Jon Sneider on the trumpet. Father-daughter thing going on, but John's son David is a very gifted jazz trumpet player who just finished his graduate work at the Juilliard School. I suppose he would be here, but he probably has a very big gig somewhere else.
He thought the bread was low, and he wanted at least $10,000.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to study at Juilliard, but I made a mistake and I went to Juliet.
Juliet. Is that where you got the handcuffs from? Oh, it's all me. The great Bill Crow. With bird names. Next year we're going to feature Steve Swallow on a concert and Gary Peacock.
They'll play music by Hawk.
Oh, yeah, I think it's like I hadn't thought of that, but obviously you did. So I thought we'd
Bird and Hawk.
Bird and Hawk, yeah. So we would like to close with something that you guys play frequently. This is a Bobby Timmons composition that was recorded by both Cannonball Adderley and Art Blakey, but not at the same time. Did you ever work with Art Blakey or Cannonball Adderley?
No, I sat and listened to him many, many times. I remember one time when Dizzy had a little band at Birdland with Art Blakey, and the first time I'd ever seen John Coltrane, he wanted to get Jimmy Heath, I think, and Jimmy was busy, so I got this guy Coltrane who none of us had ever heard of before. Anyway, every time Art Blakey would play one of those two-measure crescendo rolls and a bash on the end, Dizzy would jump about 3 feet in the air. It was wonderful.
Since you like good stories, if you see Benny Golson, you must ask him about the time he and Coltrane heard Charlie Parker play for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
And they went, it was in Philadelphia, they went to hear Dizzy because they were also big fans of Don Byas.
Oh, yeah.
And Don Byas wasn't there, and it's Bird, and they had never heard him yet or heard of him, and they looked at each other and like, oh, come on, really? So, and then they played A Night in Tunisia, and there's the famous break on the recording that Bird and Diz made, where Bird plays this fantastic, virtuosic solo break. So Benny Golson, who is a very conservative behaving person, acted out what had happened. And he said, Bird played this break, and he said Coltrane freaked out and lost his mind and went, ah! I mean, but it's funnier with Benny Golson. All right. So Dat Dare by Bobby Timmons. You just start. You have the first thing.
1, 2, 3.